Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmitz_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmitz.
Welcome to it. Great to be with you on a Wednesday. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbal. We are loaded up here for signing day 2.0 and two big-time gets and flips for Nebraska. Janarian Bonner out of Georgia. A.J. Allen, the running back that was headed to TCU and is now in. We'll load up. We'll talk with Greg Smith here momentarily on Nebraska's class, on Nebraska's two additions earlier this morning. And we'll get ready for some of Greg's thoughts. Mike Babcock will join us. We'll hear from Scott Frost. Plenty of thoughts from Coach Frost, and just not on signing day, but that new normal with the portal and, of course, how Nebraska is going to attack things in hour two. Andy Markowski will be with us. A tough one again for Nebraska basketball. What could have been, but you're kind of used to now with Nebraska. And, you know, the big question with Husker hoops, are they going to look different moving forward, right? And they look better, but they still look the same. The final 3 minutes. We'll get in there. More from Coach Frost in hour two at a Jock Doc. Numbers to get in, 466-3776, 800-825-5865 at Schmidt_radio. Chris Schmidt on Twitter, at Herbal Essence. For Elijah Herbal on Twitter. Chris at HailVarsity.com is the email. Let's recap the two new additions. Greg Smith kicks us off at Greg Smith HV, recruiting insider with Hail Varsity. Greg, good to see you at the presser. We both survived the wind chill to get to sixth floor. It's a good haul altogether for Nebraska, correct? When we look at the 16, the 13 from high school, the 3 JUCOs, and the kids from the portal. Give me a grade here for the bow put on 2022.
Yeah, it was good to see you earlier. I'm actually still standing in that room.
Look at you.
I'm working, man. The grade that I would give Nebraska is a solid B for the total haul. I think the thing keeping it back is actually something that Frost mentioned here today, was that they still need probably a couple additions on the lines of scrimmage, either on the offensive side or the defensive side or both. But I do think that Nebraska has rallied pretty strongly here from where they were when the season ended against Iowa to now. Couldn't be more different. I think you'd be lying if you didn't say you didn't feel a whole lot better now than you did before.
Energy and momentum very apparent. And when it comes to Nebraska, you know, what were you expecting, I guess? What flipped it?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I thought that there would be a slower burn kind of with the activity. I thought that you'd see Nebraska maybe get involved with a couple of guys in 2022. They'd obviously try to hit the portal hard. And in 23, you'd see a really big jump. And that has not necessarily been the case. I think you are going to see that jump at 23, and that's something that we'll be talking about here in the coming months and weeks. But with the way that 22 finished off for Nebraska, and that has to include the portal additions. Like, I know it doesn't count if you're only looking, you know, kind of at the class rankings and all of that. But Nebraska's future for the 2022 season is really dependent on all of those transfer additions. There's nice players in the high school class coming in for 22, but the portal is where it's at to help the team next year. But you have to feel good about the level of activity that we've seen from Nebraska. And like Frost mentioned, that energy that's kind of been infused into the program.
Do we know what we have in Applewhite, in Joseph, specifically? I mean, we know Mickey's reputation, but could you have imagined the job they did in Bill Bush? Can't forget Coach Bush. Right. I mean, those are three big time additions, but it didn't take them long to get rolling.
No, it absolutely didn't, and I think that we maybe underestimated the level of connections that all of those guys have throughout college football, and you can really point to a number of guys. I think for each of them, Applewhite had the least, but one of the most recent, and he was the last guy to join the staff out of that group, flipping A.J. Allen. But Bill Bush, really directly responsible for the two specialists that came to Nebraska. He's also got a huge hand on what's going to happen in 23, including maybe quarterback for Nebraska. And then we know that Mickey Joseph was all over the place, whether it was through the South, recruiting wide receivers, starting to really take the reins here in Nebraska, especially in Lincoln and Omaha. I think that one of the underrated things, too, about what those guys are going to bring to the table to Nebraska is kind of a trickle-down effect of their recruiting energy and enthusiasm and how hard they work. They're going to make it to where everyone on that staff is going to have to raise their level of how they work at this thing as well, which will be, really fun to see.
Greg Smith's with us here talking signing day on Hail Varsity Radio. And Greg, A.J. Allen, not necessarily a surprise that he's in the boat. Now, I like what A.J. Allen shows on tape. I think he's going to be an exciting prospect. But a guy that I wasn't expecting today is this wide receiver. Was Jonaran Bonner, am I pronouncing that correctly? A four-star kid from down in Georgia. Picked Nebraska late, apparently took a secret visit to Nebraska. What do you know about him, and what does he bring to the table?
Yeah, Jonaran Bonner has pulled off really a rare feat. I was saying this earlier, is that, these secret official visits just don't happen anymore, right? Like, we never see that where they go so under the radar that you just don't know about them until well after the fact. But he's a really good player, a four-star prospect just outside of Atlanta. His team just won a state championship. I think they're third in 4 years. And he had over 50 catches for his team this year, and I think 9 touchdowns. He's a really talented player. He's 6'1", 6'2", 200 pounds, and he really fits in well with what Nebraska has kind of shifted to here over the last couple of cycles with these bigger wide receivers that can do a little bit of everything. And I know a lot of fans are happy about that continued shift, but he definitely fits the mold of that.
What do you like about Allen?
He's got sweet feet. I think that he's a kid that runs really well. He's got enough speed and he's got good vision, but he can make you miss. I think Frost mentioned that today about his ability to cut and make guys miss in short spaces. I think you've noticed that immediately when you put on his film. That sometimes when guys join a class late, you just don't know much about them. You haven't had the big lead up of learning about them and hearing all the backstory. But when you pop his film on, I think even amateur film watchers like myself can see that he's a good player and that he can be an exciting guy for Nebraska in the future.
As you look at the additions, and give me 2 on offense, Greg, that you have circled that are immediate impact, and 2 on defense. And you can be obvious with quarterback if you like, or you can go a little bit further into the weeds, but give me 4 names.
Okay, so I'll skip Casey Thompson only because you preemptively called me out.
I just said you can pick quarterback.
Fine. Well, he's going to have a huge impact, yes. So I'll just go ahead and push him to the side. I do think that he's going to end up being the starter, despite what Frost said today about an open competition. I think Casey Thompson will be your starter, and he's acting as such with the leadership things that he's doing around here. Trey Palmer is a guy that I have an eye on. I think that he's going to be someone that can help push both Omar Manning and Xavier Betts, and can be a guy that can help you, obviously, in the return game this coming season as well. The other guy I'll give you is Anthony Grant, the New Mexico Institute JUCO running back, who had a largely productive time out there and helping his team to a JUCO national championship. I think he's going to be a really nice player for Nebraska and be in the mix to be in the starting lineup. On the defensive side, I'll give you Omar Brown, the defensive back, and then it gets really tough because I want to pick another defensive back, and I'll go high school and say Jaden Gold is a guy you're going to actually see this coming season and kind of go out on a limb there.
Hey, he's got a really good pedigree. You look at the teams that wanted Gould, and it's a monster get, a kind of a nice surprise get for Nebraska in signing day, 1.0. Palmer in this receiving room is so loaded. I mean, they have 13 wide receivers on scholarship heading into spring. You can go 4 or 5 wide. So, I mean, you can rotate guys in. Do you anticipate guys responding the right way in that receiver room that have been here for a while. And I'm asking about Omar because we kind of know his story as far as either missing practice or going through some personal things, and, you know, good for him battling through all that. You saw Martin get 100 yards on Illinois to start off and then kind of disappeared, and I know some of that might have been injury related, but and then Betts. I mean, Betts is a guy that it's like they went to Betts when they kind of had to, you know,
right.
not when they wanted to, so to speak. So do those three guys respond with this added receiver core in this edition?
Yeah, the thing is, they're going to have to, right? Like, otherwise, they're just going to be left behind because there's talent coming behind them. We mentioned Palmer. Garcia Castaneda is a guy that I'm already hearing good things about behind the scenes, you know, as far as his work in the weight room. And as Frost referenced today, guys just running around as he gets to kind of observe them a little bit because of the rules. But then you have guys like Alante Brown that are angling for more playing time. You have those three freshmen that were here last year, Grimes, Hardy, and Neville. I think Hardy won Scout Team Player of the Year last year. So, like, you've got a lot of talent of guys who have not been able to be out there as much as they want to. So if those top three guys that we started off talking about don't respond in the right way, there's somebody right behind them ready to take their spots. Like, that's going to be an interesting subplot, especially when you put it against the defensive backs and the competition they have. There's going to be some fun battles there.
Greg, I know with everyone worried about how the team is going to play next season, that the instant impact guys are the names that are going to be getting a lot of press right now, but there are any guys in this class that you look at and you say they might be a little under the radar now, but you like the potential, you like what they could turn into, say, in 2-3 years in the weight program?
Yeah, I'll give you one from each side of the ball. Gage Stinger from Millard South is a guy that I've been really high on throughout this process. I just think he's a really good football player who's really competitive and tough, and I think he's going to find his way onto the field at some point during his career, whether or not that's at outside linebacker or safety. I think he's going to play down the road for Nebraska. And then on the other side of the ball, I like Justin Evans Jenkins. I think that he's kind of be the first kind of pupil of new offensive line coach Donovan Raiola. Could be a potential center down the line. I really like what he can bring to the table with his wrestling background. He's got a mean streak. I like my football players, especially on the offensive line, to have a mean streak.
Greg Smith, couple more minutes going over signing day 2022 2.0. And this was normally the day where the fax machine gets dusted off. Now it's portal. Now it's signing day part 1 in December.
This is usually the day back in elementary school, middle school, where I'd develop a cough for a day and stay home sick and see what was going on.
It's the day I prayed for a snow day when I was student teaching so I could get in here and do it all. Is there any fire left in Jimbo's flamethrower?
Man, probably not. He let it all out. And it's funny, I'm watching the video of that, and when I thought he was done, he goes, and another thing. That's how you know you've got an all-time classic rant, is when somebody in the middle of their rant goes, and I got another thing. That was great. Good for him. I mean, people don't believe him necessarily, but good for him.
Well, it's like A&M landed 7 5-stars. Got to be oil money. J.R. Ewing's loose again with bags of money, and it's legal this time. But he took offense to that. Like, him and his staff didn't go beat people in living rooms. It was just stacks of cold, hard cash. He went off, man. But it is really different. It is different now, and Coach Frost, like, doesn't matter what I think. You got to either adapt or die, don't you?
Yeah, you absolutely do, and I think that's. I like that Frost said that multiple times today. But I think that's the way that you have to approach it. Otherwise, you're just going to kind of get left behind, and you can be mad about things changing. But if you're Scott Frost or any of these college football coaches, you have to adjust and adapt. Otherwise, you just won't get the talent. But I also think that, you know, in Jimbo's defense, he was kind of correct in the whole thing about A&M is a good school with a great football tradition. So I understand why he would take offense to that, especially with the other coaches actually taking pot shots at them and naming them. I get that.
Jimbo was sick of it. The stud recruit that was dancing with Brian Kelly said, "I'm picking Bama, but thanks for making a fool out of yourself." That's pretty entertaining right now. The way it's laid out is pretty impressive with what Nebraska has on staff to recruit. You look at the new staff together and that comfort level that is pretty high. I mean, it seems to me that again, you got to go play and win win in crunch time. You don't want to start anointing or jumping ship over to, well, poof, they're going to be 8-4 automatically. But they've put in some work, and past staffs have done the same. But you're just kind of getting a different caliber of athlete, I believe, when you add a guy like Bush and Mickey. I mean, they're going to some pretty big time area codes, Greg, and they're also going to really pay attention around the state and in state. That's a big thing for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the one thing I would add to that is I think they're going to pay a lot of attention to the region. I think that got brought up a little bit today by Frost, but I think that that's going to be something we'll talk a lot about here, too, is that it's not just the in-state talent, which it's plentiful, and I think that it continues to get better and better, but the region is loaded this year, and if you can start with that, I think you could build, 60, 70% of the 2023 recruiting class from just right here in the radius at in-state, which would be a really big thing for Nebraska football.
Greg Smith, be sure to read his recaps and his analysis with HailVarsity.com and magazine. Give him a follow on Twitter at GregSmithHV. Greg, will let you keep on cranking it out up at West Stadium. Thanks for giving us a few minutes today.
Hey, no problem. You guys have a great week.
All right, there he is, Greg Smith, twice in about 72 hours because he loves us. Good work from him. Really like A.J. Allen, really like Bonner, and I like who's going to be working with those guys to elevate their game.
Smaller signing class this year, but I think some impactful guys in that class.
We'll check in with Mike Babcock, get his take on Big Red football moving forward. Thoughts on Husker hoops also on the way. Hello, listener. Hey, it's Chris Schmidt with Hail Varsity Radio, and I wanted to let you know about a special deal just for listeners of the Hail Varsity Radio Show podcast. We're offering $10 off the annual subscription price of $29.99. That means that you, for less than $20, can get everything we do. 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all the premium content we produce at HailVarsity.com. Just go to HailVarsity.com/subscribe and enter in the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's HailVarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
And we're back
Fellas, think we could listen to the radio
on Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Yes! That's awesome!
Well, you've been wondering about a Kevin Steele update. I know you have. Nebraska's famed linebacker coach and ace recruiter back in the 90s was supposed to head off to Maryland to work for his old buddy Mike Loxley. Pumped the brakes because he's going to go. He's headed down to Miami, and he's going to be working for the U.
They had like a nameplate.
Super Mario.
They had like a nameplate on the door and everything for him at Maryland, like all ready to go.
And he was able to dirty $1 million out of Tennessee to be a consultant during their 38th coaching change. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, every program that's kind of launched, and I look back to the first hire Saban made at Alabama was Kevin Steele. And then he went to Auburn, and then he went to Clemson. When Dabo and company took off, Kevin Steele was there at Clemson. So he's had a few different gigs, but it's not for lack of coaching. And I know he didn't have a good Orange Bowl as a D coordinator one time at Clemson, but the point is he's been, on the merry-go-round of some of the who's who programs that continually crush it in recruiting. He was instrumental, obviously, in getting Tommy Frazier to Nebraska. And we bring in Mike Babcock, HailVarsity.com and magazine on signing day. Babbers, Kevin Steele, one of the best of the best when it comes to Husker lore and recruiting.
Yeah, and like you said, especially getting Tommy Frazier, that was a big get because I think Tommy was inclined to go elsewhere.
Yeah, Clemson, Notre Dame, Colorado.
Yep.
Then Nebraska got him.
Yep. I think there was kind of a standing joke there that Tommy told that he was Kevin Steele was playing cards with Tommy's mom, I think, or whatever. Like Tommy was, and that's when he persuaded the mom to influence Tommy to take a recruiting visit to Nebraska. Tommy wasn't going to take a visit because he thought, well, I'm going to go. I forget which one it was, Colorado or.
He was head of the Colorado, and I think Colorado said, we're going to go to a 3 wide 1 back like Washington and Miami run, and so they may have. They said, we still want you, but we may think about the defensive back side of the ball, right? And I think they went and got Coy Detmer.
Yeah, they got Detmer. I know that.
Tommy.
But Tommy was not going to visit Nebraska. And then Kevin Steele went out there and persuaded Tommy's mom to say to Tommy, well, you need to at least go take a visit. And once he took the visit, it was over. It was over there. So
it was a balmy 19 degrees, probably.
Yeah. That's one thing you have to present to recruits from those warm areas is, it gets a little cool here, but, that's not the point. The point is they're coming here to play football and get great academic support, and I think that's a selling point as well.
Mike, what stuck out to you about Coach Frost's presser today? We'll start there before we touch on some recruiting.
Well, I agree with everything Greg said, so thanks for having me. I'll talk to you next week. No, I thought Scott seemed very upbeat, which is not surprising. These things are always that way. Everything is great at this point. It's your imagination that this team can be as good as it needs to be because of the guys that are coming in, the positions that are being filled, and whatever. And I think that, as Greg said, I think that Nebraska has done a pretty good job of getting guys in the areas that they needed to have some guys. And I hope, I believe Scott, I guess, when he says that there's going to be competition at quarterback. They got some talent there, I think, at quarterback. I was just counting a list here, and I'm probably missing somebody, but I got 14 wide receivers working with Mickey Joseph. Mm-hmm. We got 7 running backs working with scholarship running backs that are working with Applewhite. And so it's going to, and some of these guys, in some instances, they're going to be limited probably in the spring, but it's going to be an exciting spring, as it always is. It's interesting, but the competition is going to be pretty remarkable, I think. A little bit unusual when you're given the numbers of players. And, we're going to see some of these guys probably leave after spring because they're going to look at it and say, I'm not in a position where I'm going to have an opportunity to do a whole lot. Maybe if you're a freshman, it's a little bit different because you can look down to the future. But when you've got the number of quarterbacks, they got 5 scholarship quarterbacks now.
Yeah.
And I don't blame a young guy that's got talent, and he ends up being number 5 or whatever. That's a blow to your the confidence that made you the player that you are. It takes a hit when you're in a situation like that. You've really got to believe that, hey, down the line I'm going to have an opportunity. I'm going to keep competing, and I'm going to do, everything that I need to do to be the best I can be to be in that position. But there's going to be a lot of competition, I think, in the spring, and that's going to be something that's exciting for people, obviously, when you're talking about quarterbacks and running backs and wide receivers. But as we always talk, it's going to come down to whether they can develop an offensive line to help the talent that they've got at those positions. And that's the thing that is going to be interesting to me. As always, I say that, but is how is the offensive line going to develop? Who's going to fit into the places that need to be filled, and how is that going to impact everything?
Mike Babcock's with us here on Hail Varsity Radio on signing day. And Mike, I'm right with you. I think this spring is going to be exciting from an outside perspective to be able to see what new faces are in the program, what younger guys are going to be stepping up. And that, I guess, is my question to you is which phase of the game are you most excited to see some of these new faces and some of these younger guys? I know offensively a lot of transfers coming in that are going to be trying to make a name for themselves. Defensively, you got a lot of young guys going to be trying to step up and fill some big shoes and get on the field themselves. And on special teams, you got a new punter and a new kicker, as well as Bill Bush coming in doing some work. So which phase of the game are you most excited to see what kind of progress there is in spring ball?
Well, if we can really see it, obviously special teams. You've got to, Nebraska's got to do a better job on special teams, and that's reflected by the fact that, Bill Bush is a special teams coach. That's going to be his focus. That's why they made him full-time as a coach. And I have a lot of respect for Bill, and I think he can get the job done if he's got. First, you got to start off with the specialists, obviously, and you're going to have a new kicker and a new punter, and maybe a guy like Trey Palmer is going to be a possible returner. Whatever you want to see some of those guys, but I think that they have to improve on special teams if this team is going to flip things around. Now, that's one thing that I think with the transfer portal and the way things are now, the way things change so dramatically, I think a team can flip from one year to the next, from 3-9 to 7-5 or whatever. I think you can make that flip because of all the transition. Everybody's making changes, and again, the numbers that Nebraska has at these positions. And somebody suggested about 30 new players coming in here. You got 5 new coaches. It's just going to be an interesting spring, and can they flip things? And where is my interest? Well, special teams for sure, and then my standard reply is that offensive line. How does that line develop? And it'll be interesting to see these quarterbacks. We haven't seen anything like that for a while.
No, the quarterback competition is going to be fascinating to see if. I mean, the expectation is for Thompson to win it, but he still has to go do it. And then just again, you got to do it on the field, but. Everybody I've talked to about Casey raves about his leadership, and I know that's also something that's a talking point during the offseason. But I guess I trust who I've talked to about Casey Thompson and his leadership, what truly does make him different. Mike, Nebraska has always been cutting edge, or they had been anyway, with strength and conditioning, TV appearances, system they ran, and then just the way they practice, where you had your first and second team guys getting so many reps, and then your third and fourth team guys also getting reps. This portal that allows roster management, if you do it right, look at Mel Tucker and hit a couple of home runs, man, it can really be incredible. And Frost was asked about, a full-time guy when it comes to the portal and management. Nebraska could, again, have an advantage over a number of schools if they do this right.
Yeah, that's possible. A lot of the things that you mentioned, Nebraska was on the cutting edge of that stuff, and now everybody kind of does it. That was the strength and conditioning thing was, Nebraska was way ahead of just about everybody on that, and now everybody's kind of caught up on that. Nebraska's facilities were better. Academic counseling was better. Programs continue to keep, catch up on those things. So, you've got to find something maybe that's going to set you apart a little bit, and maybe that's something that, you can evaluate. The guys in the transfer portal or whatever, somebody, that's their responsibility. Sounds like that's what Nebraska's going to try to do anyway. And, it's important. It's especially important for Nebraska because of location. That's still a problem, because it's not as dense a population here. The weather can be a factor here. There are other things that you have to consider when you're recruiting or you're trying to get somebody in a transfer portal or whatever. and so you have to have an edge. Figure out how to have an edge, and maybe that's what they're doing.
Mike Babcock's with us, HailVarsity.com and magazine historian, author, Hall of Famer at MD Babs on Twitter is where you find him. Mike, good to chat some ball with you, bud. Stay warm, and we'll get caught up again next week. How's that sound?
Thanks for having me, guys.
Appreciate you, Mike. Good stuff from Babbers. We'll hit some Husker hoops. Andy Markowski in 25 minutes. Jimbo Fisher pulling the pin and launching towards NIL and recruiting. Hail Varsity continues.
Hello, listener. This is Brandon Vogel, managing editor of Hail Varsity, and I wanted to let you know about a special deal just for listeners of the Hail Varsity Radio Show podcast. We're offering $10 off the annual subscription price of $29.99. That means that you, for less than $20, can get everything we produce: 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all of the premium content we produce at HailVarsity.com. Just go to HailVarsity.com/subscribe and enter the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's HailVarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Coming up here towards 5:30, we'll have some thoughts. Little 2-minute drill with Scott Frost and the signing class from his press conference. Andy Markowski on Husker Hoops. Real quick, Nebraska going to have their lowest rated recruiting class in years, but it's better than it was in mid-December. When it comes to national ranking, number 41 is where Nebraska comes in, number 10 in the Big Ten. That per the 24/7 Sports Composite. This does not include additions from the transfer portal. Nebraska landed a solid number 8 in portal rankings, just in front of Alabama, who finished 9. When it comes to the additions via the portal, that's what ESPN, they went and kind of did their top 10 schools based on portal. So
I think USC finished number 1, and then the Portal King.
USC better finish number 1.
Yeah. And then Kiffin, the Portal King, finished number 2.
He did. We will hear from Lane Kiffin in a moment and Jimbo Fisher in a moment. Frosty had the previous 4 classes were all top 20. His lowest recruiting class at Central Florida was 23. You look at Riley, his lowest recruiting class was number 30 in 2015. Bose was number 40 in 2009, and I think those kids turned out to be pretty good if you go 4 and 5 years down the road. That 2014 class, that 2014 season, 2013 year. I know they didn't win the Big Ten West, but they were, 9-10 win football team. What's interesting is where things went on the defensive line. I mean, they had a whole bunch of whiffs in 2009 and 2010 on the defensive line, and then you shift to the Big Ten. So getting Bonner is big, getting Gould is big, and Allen's nice. Ohio State finished 1, Penn State in at 2. Nationally, Ohio State comes in at 4, Penn State at 6. Michigan still finishes 3 in the Big Ten and number 8. That's despite this Harbaugh thing in limbo. I've not seen anything official from the Vikings. I've not seen anything official from Michigan saying, hey, welcome back, Jimbo. Indiana, they're usually in the 40s and 50s. Coach Allen finished 21st in the country, 4th overall. Sparty in at 22. Iowa, a top 30 class, in at 29. Rutgers in at 31, number 7 in the Big Ten. Maryland, top 35, number 33. Finishes 8th. Purdue 9, Nebraska 10, Wisconsin finishes 11th. They're always in that neighborhood of 35 to 40, it seems like. I know last year they were around 20. Illinois in at number 12. The Gophers in at 13. They develop incredibly well. And then there's Northwestern in at number 14 with the 49th ranked recruiting class. Now, Northwestern 2 or 3 years ago, I think they were in the 60s, and they ended up having a couple of first-round guys go last year. They'll have a safety that goes first round this year. So it's all about evaluation and development. You can put the eyeball test and turn the film on and get the kids here. What do you do with them once they get here? And Nebraska right now finishes where they finished right around 41. Let's get a couple of thoughts recruiting-wise, because it is the year of the portal and NIL, and you put those two things together, it can be great and it can be terrible. So first, it's Jimbo Fisher. Don't ever accuse Jimbo of just handing out money at A&M, because why would anybody do that, historically speaking, at A&M? Him and his staff did a hell of a job. They finished number one in the country. They should, with the proximity to talent. But Jimbo went off today when it comes to the thought, the narrative that it's just, well, come to A&M, get paid. Jimbo says, hold on a minute.
There is no $30 million fund. There is no $5 million. There is no $10 million. This is garbage, okay? And it pisses me off that people, and here it comes from a site called Bro Bible by a guy named Slice Bread. Then everybody runs with it. So it's written on the internet, it's gospel. How irresponsible is that? I'm going to tell you, there's some very reputable writers in college football and sports that wrote it and have said it and have done things. That's unbelievable to me. When I first heard it, I laughed. I said, oh, yeah, what a clown. I mean, I didn't even think anything of it because I don't have social media. And it kept building, and lately I've heard more about it. To me, it's insulting to the players that we recruited that's why they would come here. You ever been to a game here? You ever come to school here and see the education? You ever talk about the 12th man, the Aggie Network, when you're done? There ain't a better university in this country. And it's insulting to what you say. And all these, and we got writers who have said it and done it off sliced bread. A guy named Slice who made it up. Love to see who sliced bread is and put it out there with sliced bread. Let me find out where it comes from. And then to have coaches in our league and across this league to say it, clown acts. All right? Irresponsible as hell. Multiple coaches in our league. And the guy's griping about NIL, griping about transfer portal, using it the most and bragging about it the most. That's the ironic part. You want character? I'll take it with any of y'all. It's a joke. It does piss me off. We worry about the kids and social media and internet. How about grown-ups? How about the guys that are supposed to be setting an example? How about writers who are supposed to be writing the right thing? How about coaches who are supposed to be doing the right thing? And I'll tell you what, I know how some of those guys recruit too. Go dig into that. I know the history, I know the tradition, and I know things. Trust me, you don't want to go down that avenue. It's ridiculous, and it's irresponsible, and it's unbelievable. I ain't just talking about one. Multiple people got NIL issues. It's funny, when Nick Saban said his quarterback got an $800,000 deal, it was wonderful. Now it ain't wonderful no more, huh? But ours, we ain't got that. Ours are on record what comes up. We ain't doing all them big deals. There ain't none on our place that we know of. That's funny when you do it. It's and then we gripe about the transfer portal, then you guys take more than everybody. What's about that? And what goes on? The hypocrisy is a joke.
Yeah, it is very hypocritical. So there's a lot of shots at one Lane Kiffin there. There's some shade in Alabama, and you can toot your horn because you actually beat him in a walk-off. But Lane Kiffin speaking out about just worried about kids going to the highest bidder. And that always happened when it was illegal. Now, technically, it's a level playing field if you have friends of the program. If you've got those shadowy booster figures that have a payroll, a la SMU and Eric Dickerson. So here's Lane's take on things.
One second, it's the video is loading for some reason. I'm not sure why it's not. The Wi-Fi in here is giving us some issues right now.
That's all right. I was like, wow, Lane sounds a lot like Elijah.
Hey, I think I could do it down there.
All he needs to do is grow a mustache like Elijah. Are we gonna just carry this thing over?
Let's carry it over because I'm just getting a black screen right now.
Yeah, you know. So Frosty will be on here at 5:25. His comments from the press conference. Andy Markowski to go over Husker hoops. I don't know what to tell you other than you should have expected last night to go the way it went in basketball, and you had a key moment with Kisei Tominaga losing his mind at midcourt. That flipped everything. He's very demonstrative, to the point of annoyance if you're playing against him. If you love Nebraska basketball, you're like, hey, he's our guy, so whatever. But that screwed the team. It wasn't the factor, but it didn't help. Some more thoughts here on signing day 2.0. We wind down hour one with Hail Varsity.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for hanging out. Great to be with you on signing day 2.0, Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Good gets for Nebraska with Bonner and A.J. Allen. Big body, wide out, 6'3", Bills. Can run, 50-50 ball guy. And a big dude with speed, great feet, wonderful vision, shiftiness with Allen. That's kind of the recruiting rundown in a nutshell. But two more names, two more flips for Nebraska. Reminder about buckling up. Using your seatbelt saves lives, prevents injuries, only if properly worn. Buckle up, a message from the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. Are we ready for Lane or no? Okay, Lane Kiffin bemoaning NIL. And, well, Lane's smooth, but this is getting called out by one Jimbo in his same division.
Have the same, funding resources as some of these schools do, for these NIL deals. And so it's basically like dealing with different salary caps. We now have a sport that has completely different salary caps, and some of these schools are, 5-10 times more than everybody else of what they can pay the players. So I know nobody uses those phrases, but that is what it is. So I joked the other day, I didn't know if Texas A&M was going to incur a luxury tax, and how much they paid for their signing class. In free agency in the NFL, players usually go to the most money. Every once in a while they don't, because they already have a bunch of money. Well, these kids are 17, 18 years old. They're going to go to where they're paid the most. So I'm not complaining. It just is what it is. Whenever there's things created, there's a lot of times problems people didn't think about, and so you just legalize paying players what people used to cheat.
So the luxury tax is hilarious. That's funny. 30 million, 50 million, school, seriously? Those kids aren't going to school for free. That from our friend Rock Westfall on Twitter. What did Carlisle say? Or Cardale Jones say?
We ain't come here to play school.
Right. So, yeah, there you go. Pretty funny. Listen to Lane. No one has as much money as A&M. Legit. They have oil. They have ego. They have their own pretend military outfit that will storm a spring break beach near you. They're good folks. The folks I know that have been at A&M. But it's just different down there. And for them to land this, and Jimbo can coach, and Jimbo's great with talent. But when the talent goes goodbye, he's 7-5 and leaving Florida State. It's thick. You got A&M that has been in the SEC. They've had moments where the Johnny Football era existed, and they were 10-2 under R.C. Slocum every season, or 9-3, and then they go to a bowl game and score 9 points with an incredible defense. They need to, the money is in the mouth. They need to start winning some ball games. And step one was great because they knocked off Bama, but they still had a 3-game losing streak. Pirates still beat them by a field goal. They lost to Arkansas, right? That season was ready to unravel till they hit a game-winning kick. Now, it was year one, but as much resource and finance and influence as that joint has down there, as football crazy as the 12th man is, waving their white towels, they better crank out some titles. Not just SEC West. Jimbo better be in the playoff in 3 years. Guaranteed contract or not for $750 million.
I want to get your take on this argument today, though. Who do you think is correct? Do you think it's Lane or do you think it's Jimbo? Who's lying?
Neither are lying. They're both right. But Lane shouldn't. Lane can't come off as a victim because there's some. Ole Miss has been notorious for years.
Ole Miss has got money.
How many times do you see a kid with a Tupac type wad of dough on signing day when Hugh Freeze was down there? Andy Markowski's next. Pardon the interruption, but I'd like to save you some money. Hey, it's Chris Schmidt with Hail Varsity, and I wanted to offer listeners of this podcast $10 off the price of an annual subscription. That means that you, for less than $20, can get everything we produce. 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all the premium content we produce at HailVarsity.com. Just go to HailVarsity.com/subscribe and enter in the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's HailVarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmitz_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmitz.
More signing day 2.0 ahead. Thoughts from Scott Frost at 5:25. A nail biter last night and familiar finish for Nebraska basketball, 85-79 at Chrysler Arena. Now the women put in some work despite tough from three-point land. And we welcome in Husker standout Pride of Ord, Andy Markowski, also an assistant with the Pius Girls high school basketball team at Markowski_Andy. You see him during March with NET's coverage of the state basketball tournament. Andy, what's good, man? How you doing?
Doing well, Schmitty. Just trying to stay warm here. Little Arctic cold. It's not fun.
You were putting for dough on Monday, and now you're wearing a stocking hat.
Welcome to Nebraska, right?
That's true. So you did not deny putting for dough on Monday. I love it. I love it. Eddie, I got to start off with the Nebraska men last night. And, the question is this. Can they get better? Can they put some sort of run together with this part of their schedule? There's no easy nights in the Big Ten. And we're just, wondering how February will work. And then there's March. In a disappointing season. Did last night feel or look any different to you, or do you look at the bottom line, it being another loss, an 18th consecutive loss against Power 5 and another loss, a consecutive loss in conference?
Yeah, I got to break the season up into two halves. You kind of had your pre-Christmas, which left everybody kind of scratching their heads and wondering. Post-Christmas, this group has been, much better. I think they've played with more of a purpose. They've been more competitive, minus a Purdue game and at Rutgers. They've been in Big Ten games on the road, more so at home. Shot selection, toughness. They've grown in a lot of areas. So I'm encouraged in the sense of it'd be easy for this team to just kind of go away and have kind of an embarrassing finish, and they're hanging in there to the point where you feel bad for them. They played well enough to win yesterday. I was not at I was at the Nebraska women's game, but listened to the start of the second half on the radio, and then caught the end of the game, and just some bad bounces. We had a three go in and out. Michigan had a three, that hit six parts of the rim and then went down. And you just feel like, a little like the football team. They just can't get out of their own way to win a few of these games. But the schedule does turn in their favor. They have 6 games against the bottom, 5 teams in the league in a row here. And, I think I'm like all the fans. At some point, you have to start winning. And, I think Fred knows that. I think the kids know that. But they have to break through and find a way to start winning basketball games.
Eddie, it seemed like Nebraska settled. They were up, and then they were down, and then they put a run together, and then Michigan, ripped off a 20-6 spurt with Tominaga's technical. That's 4 points and another couple of free throws drew Michigan within a point. And listen, I don't think you have ever done this, but have you ever seen someone freak out at half court and get teed up on a questionable no call? I mean, I guess my question is, should Nebraska be above that emotion in that moment?
Well, when your margin is really small, Chris, right? I mean, which their margin is, you can't have those plays. I mean, you have to minimize the things that you can control that could go wrong, and certain given Michigan 3 points in hindsight, wasn't didn't help the outcome. But there were some turnovers late. A couple. Questionable transition decisions. McGowan's had a great game, but, one time he was just off balance and instead of kind of dribbling it out or coming to a jump stop, just kind of threw it at the rim, and then Michigan raced it down and scored. And those are the plays that, if you can just eliminate 10, 12, 14 of those plays, it enhances your chance to win. So, with Tominaga's, language barrier and an emotion, you can't, fault the kid for being, angry that it probably was a missed call when you look at the replay in slow motion. But, that technical was a big call. And once again, it's just a negative play that has kept this team from having a chance to win these close games.
What did you think of Fred's lineup to close? And that was Webster, Kisei, Wiltshire, Bryce, Walker down the stretch. It's the lineup that got a run put together to retake the lead, but it's also the lineup he stuck with. There was no Verge, there was no Trey, the final 12 and a half. Trey I can kind of get based on the pitch count they're probably being careful with, but no Verge. And I know Verge had a tough time once the lane got clogged again.
Yeah, I'm not going to question, without watching the whole game, certainly, that stretch got them back in it, right? I mean, they were down, and that group, had a little rhythm and momentum. Did you have your best defensive group out there? You could argue that McGowan's would have been better than Tominaga, but yet, you don't want to burn a timeout to have to sub back offense to defense. So I don't want to get into that questioning of Fred. You hope that he knows his team well, and matchups and all of that are stuff that the assistants and him are discussing as you're getting into the last few minutes of a basketball game. It's just the group that they had out there just didn't make enough plays. Webster turned it over a key. I mean Tominaga gave up a layup. Each of the guys out there kind of made a play that hurt them, but yet they could have went away with Michigan's run to start the half, and that group didn't as well. So, in hindsight, you can always piece it together and always analyze it and say we should have done this at this point. But, they didn't. They lost, and I just think the frustration is starting to mount on the whole program.
Yeah, Andy, you mentioned that run coming out of halftime for Michigan, and I know basketball is a game of runs and something you got to expect, but why does it feel like Nebraska struggles so much to start the second half just about every single game, game in, game out? It feels like, last night I think the run was 24-4 at one point coming out of halftime, so just what can explain that? Is there something going on in the locker room that is just getting this team down? Is Hoiberg losing the team at halftime? I just can't seem to understand why there so consistently seems to be bad play coming out of halftime.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I think they need to look at. What adjustments are being made. Every game's a little different. I mean, as a coach, and I remember this as an athlete, when you started this half slow, we changed the second half warm up. Getting kids out there with a little bit more time to get ready to play the second half. I think they have to look at all those things. I mean, one of which, Michigan's big got out of foul trouble and started the second half. I think that was probably the biggest reason why they were able to go on a run. They finally, got to their starting lineup back on the floor to start the second half. But, there's always, there's 1,000 variables that you're trying to manage as a coach. And, if that's a pattern, you have to look at who you're starting, the preparation, the adjustments you're making at halftime. And, once again, that 4-minute stretch is is huge in determining, how the second half momentum goes. And Nebraska really lost control of what was a really well-played first half.
Eddie, what do you think of Bryce and his growth? Was really good last night. He's been more and more efficient, not perfect, but he's playing really high level for a freshman. And a lot of guys, as young as he is, hit the wall this far into the season. He seems to be getting stronger.
Yeah, he's had a great, freshman year. Everybody sees the warts, right? There's some things that you wish he could do better, physicality, rebounding, but, he's going to shatter the freshman, scoring record. I think I saw something online today. He's already fourth all time, and, that list is pretty impressive with players that had great careers at Nebraska. And, Dave Hoppin is at the top of that, and I think he's going to blow by him in the next couple weeks. So, he's a tremendous talent. Unfortunately, it hasn't went well for the team. And, I think he's taken a little bit of the blame for that. But yet, to your point, Chris, he's performed well in big games. He's played more efficient. I think his shot selection, has gotten better, even though there's times that we get stagnant and he's forced to maybe go get the ball and try to make something happen in late clocks that can come across as selfish. But, for a freshman, knowing how physical and hard and well coached that Big Ten is, he keeps improving and finding shots, and his consistency from the three has gotten better throughout the season, which is a credit to probably the time and energy he's spending in the gym shooting and getting extra shots.
Andy, a thought here for this weekend. Northwestern comes to town. Is this weekend the day the streak finally goes away?
Yeah, I sure hope so. I mean, I was an athlete. No one likes to lose. I mean, they're competitive kids. Fans are competitive. They've played better. They have played better. I see the growth and improvement. I hope they break through. There's still a lot of wins on their schedule if they can, keep playing as consistent as they have been playing through stretches of a lot of the games over the last month. They need something good to happen for them. Without winning over the next couple of weeks, you can start to, want the season to get over. And if you ever get to that mindset, you can lose by, 30 and 40 points pretty easy. So, I hope they break through. It's alumni weekend on Sundays or Saturday. So, I'm excited to go back and be around the program. A lot of forward players are going to be back. So it'd be a great way to spend the day and help them enjoy a win.
Eddie, let's talk. Andy Markowski is with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Let's talk about the Husker women. Hard-fought ball game against Rutgers. And, Alexis continues. Man, she's found such a great rhythm and really playing well. We talk about Bryce. She's played great basketball in her freshman season. Touch on just kind of the rhythm she's in.
Well, yeah, they've got a great group, as you know, and when you get a chance to play with great teammates and they have good depth in the post. Their guard play has been great, so Alexis has been really fortunate to come into a good situation, been accepted by her teammates. Has just grown in confidence and finding ways to help the team win games, and that's allowed her minutes to go up, and her productivity has kind of gone up with their minutes, and just happy for the group of girls. I've gotten to know them, and hopefully they can keep it going. They've positioned themselves well up to this point with another home game here tomorrow night. So this time of year, it's just last night was kind of a rock fight, but hopefully they can catch some momentum and play their best basketball down the stretch.
Now, Alexis is shooting north of I think 60%, almost 70% from three on the season. I know we talked about her 3-point shooting a few weeks ago, but were you even expecting her to be shooting the ball from behind the arc that well?
Yeah, I get asked that a lot, and certainly Alexis has expanded her game, didn't do it a ton in high school, but did it in the summer. Sit there and say she was going to make 6 threes and score 16 points against Iowa in a quarter. I mean, that obviously has exceeded her mom and I's expectations. But, she's really for the first time in her life, has focused on just one sport. She split her time with volleyball and basketball, and since the end of high school basketball season, it's been all basketball. So her amount of growth over the last 7 to 8 months has really been phenomenal to watch, and her confidence is way up, which is a big part of the success that she's having. So hopefully she can. Last night she missed a few. I keep talking to her that water tends to find its level, right? That you're probably not going to have a better percentage than Steph Curry, but hey, keep shooting and enjoy it while it lasts. But no, it's been fun to see that success. It allows her to expand her game and make sure that the other team is guarding her out to the 3-point line, which helps her teammates get open and have driving lanes as well. So. We're hoping they keep going in because she's worked hard to expand that part of her game.
Andy Markowski with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Andy, about 30 seconds. When's the next horse game in the driveway between Alexis and you? Can we come watch that?
Yeah, I stopped playing her one-on-one last. I don't know if you ever read the article. I was trying to guard her before we played Omaha Central, which they had 6'6" and 6'5".
Yeah.
And she hit me so hard, I hit my elbow and head on the floor when she knocked me down. So horse would be the only thing that I would do against her anymore. So, and I'm not so sure I will even do that because I don't know if I can. I have a pretty good trick shot where I can go behind my back and make it, which tends to get them out. So without that, I have a hard time winning. But certainly those games exist in our family, and it's fun to share those experiences with all 4 of my kids.
That's awesome. Eddie, have a good rest of your week, bud. Thanks for the time today.
All right, fellas. Thanks.
Take care. I didn't see or hear that Andy got McHale'd in his own driveway. Or at the Pius Gym last year.
I guess the 2022 equivalent would be Grayson Allen against Alex Caruso.
Right, well, and I said McHale. McHale's the dance step king for the Celtics of yesteryear. I should have said shacked.
Call it the Markowski rules.
Okay, sure. Like the Jordan rules.
Yeah, it's similar.
Thoughts from Scott Frost on signing day next. It's Hail Varsity Radio.
Pardon the interruption, but I'd like to save you some money. I'm Brandon Vogel, managing editor of Hail Varsity, and I wanted to offer listeners of this podcast $10 off the price of an annual subscription. That means that you, for less than $20, can get everything we produce, 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all of the premium content we produce at hailvarsity.com. Just go to hailvarsity.com/subscribe and enter the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's hailvarsity.com/subscribe. Promo code GBR.
Chime in 402-466-ESPN or email the show, Chris@HailVarsity.com.
Just try me.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Big thanks to Andy Markowski on Husker basketball and the Husker women as they got it handled last night. Found a way. The men trying to break through on Saturday. And we'll see if they can put it together with shot selection in those winning moments and the little things, right? Turnover, offensive rebound, and you're up with a few minutes left. We're talking 3-4 minutes, and you're still ahead, right? I mean, you've done everything to survive Michigan's response run and put your own run together. And then I would like to see Hoiberg maybe call some sets out. And not that he hasn't or doesn't, but it just looked like Nebraska got settle happy with some quick threes, just some quick shots in the shot clock. And totally different ball game without Hunter Dickinson in, clearly. I mean, Nebraska, the equal of Michigan. Dickinson the difference there. But legit, I mean, just the way that finished with the Kobe turnover. They picked on Tominaga on the offensive end where they just ran right at him, got him isolated, and his man scored a couple baskets in a row without much help defense. And then you get the offensive rebound after a miss. You held Michigan to, I think, 2 of 12 or 2 of 13 from 3. Gave up 14. I make that 18 second chance points, 14 in the second half. They're always going to get slapped on the offensive glass, but timing's been as bad as the number. Not just if, but when that happens. And, yeah, they got to do a little bit better job to create some space for Bryce. He did a great job, and his shots, I'd say 80% of his shots were good shots.
Yeah, I think in my memory I count maybe 2 bad three-pointers all night from Bryce. Maybe 3.
No, I get you. But
there was one in transition that was iffy.
There was one that Kobe took in the corner quick. We're talking around that 3 to 2 minute mark. And you're still tied at 79 with 1:20 left.
But you knew what was going to happen as a Husker fan. You knew somebody on the offensive end was going to try to go hero ball, and they were going to put up a terrible shot.
Yeah, it is.
It's every game.
And that's where I want the old Phil Jackson treatment, where Fred's whistling or throwing something or getting the attention, and let's call the play like you saw Kobe on the pick and roll and you found Lat on that dunk towards the end of the game. I think it was against Illinois, or excuse me, against Indiana. So you've got a wealth of things you can call, and you're a smart enough coach offensively to know when to call them. I love you for trusting your kids to make the right play. They don't. More times than not. Something goes wrong. Husker football. Let's get some thoughts from Scott Frost. And pretty adamant about this new normal where it's portal, it's JUCO, it's high school, it's transfer. And that is how you reset your roster. Like it, hate it, or, yeah, just deal with it. Here's Coach.
It feels different, Sean, but everything's changing. And other than the new coaching faces, I think this is kind of where it's going. You know, there's so many kids getting in the portal, so many changes, people jumping around, and I expect that this year will kind of be the new normal going forward.
You adapt or die. Nebraska's adapted. They'll continue to do so. And you look at a guy like Bill Bush and Mickey Joseph and even Applegate. It's
Applewhite.
Applewhite, thank you. I was thinking of Applegate from high school. Yeah, Applewhite. I've blocked out the name Applewhite since 1998. Clearly not the coach, but the name still makes me reach for vodka. Okay, let's get the update here on Bonner from Frost here. In his words, the receiver Nebraska's getting.
Janiron Bonner, a guy we kind of got on late, was kind of looking around after the early signing period. He's one of the guys you put on his tape, and it takes you about 2 plays to realize his athletic ability. You know, Mickey did a really good job with him. Coach Beck did a really good job with him. I went down and saw him the last week of recruiting. Really impressed by his talent, but also the type of kid that he is. Had a great team around him, and we're excited to add him. I think he can be a big play guy for us down the road.
13 scholarship wideouts. We will talk about who stays and who goes after April 9th. But there's going to be a high demand and buy-in, I would imagine, because of the proof that's, well, playing in the Super Bowl, but the proof that's also playing in Vegas this weekend when it comes to Pro Bowl wideouts in the NFL.
And the proof of back-to-back offensive rookies of the year, correct? Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase isn't official yet, but he's
got it.
He's gonna be offensive rookie of the year.
I would get it. I mean, the way Chase closed this season. I mean, we're talking MVP votes.
We're talking top 5 wide receivers in the league as the league stands right now as a rookie.
No, he's fantastic. He's unguardable. A.J. Allen. Really good running back. Nebraska got to flip from TCU. Applewhite made that happen. Pretty crowded running back room, but that's a good thing.
A.J. Allen is kind of interesting because we were kind of shopping for one more running back at the position, another freshman. I didn't know anything about him until I started interviewing running back coaches. Coach Applewhite mentioned him to me kind of the same way when I put on his tape. He's one of my favorite guys that I watched all year. There's a lot of backs that can do some things. I think he's a guy that can potentially do everything that we need a running back to do. I'm really impressed with his quickness and ability to make somebody miss in short space and in the hole. Another great family, and again, somebody that kind of popped up onto my radar late, but I'm really glad we got him.
Well, you have guys like Joseph and Applewhite. They have a great radar system. Their grid is vast, and that helps in these situations.
And I'll say from my untrained eye watching A.J. Allen, of any running back that has been brought here out of the high school ranks to Nebraska, he looks the most college ready. Not untrained eye here. I'm no college coach. I'm just watching the highlights, which are like the, highlights. I'm not putting lowlights in there. But from his feet to his quickness to his top end speed, he looks like one of those guys where I actually watch his film and I go, this guy looks like a college running back.
Well, let's hear from him. There's a snippet of Allen and the process and the recruitment. This was his signing day moment this morning around 9 o'clock.
I went to Nebraska. I was like, man, it's kind of far away, but I got to do what's best for me at the end of the day. They games sell out every home game. Hundreds of thousands of people be there. So, I like to play in those kind of type games. I like that environment. So,
did you enjoy the recruiting process, or did it get a little stressful for you?
Yes, sir. Throughout the whole time, it was stressful. That's why I didn't sign the first sign today. Coming to times like this, I'm like one of the first person out of my family to go to college, sign a contract to go to college, to play football. And,
A year ago, could you have envisioned this moment?
Yes, sir. I knew to keep working in the summertime. I knew I would go somewhere and play football, but at the end of the day, I want to get my academics right too. So,
big relief now that it's over?
Yes, sir. My heart kind of beating fast right now at the moment.
The moments before you sign, what is it like? Walk us through that process.
Everybody was here to support me. Everybody kept texting me all night long, where you going, where you going? I was like, we're going to see tomorrow, and it happened today.
When you called Nebraska, did they even know yet?
Oh, yes, sir, they knew last night. So,
what was the reaction when you told the coaches?
Oh, everybody, they ready for me to put this out right now.
The coaches love that phone call. Quarterback's a big topic today, and you have two in the portal. You have a number of kids still on campus that are scholarship players, and let the best win the job and then develop a backup that can come in and do their thing if and when a first-string quarterback goes down in the Big Ten. But here's Coach Frost on the topic of adding two quarterbacks.
We usually carry 5 Sam scholarship guys. We were down to 3 returning. So we felt like we needed to get the numbers back up. Looking forward to some competition at some of these positions, and that being one of them. But there's a lot of new faces and new additions that are going to be able to compete with our guys and push them. We're going to let the best man win, but we felt like in order to get that position back to where it should be, that maybe adding 2, and if we could find the 2 right ones, that we wanted them.
Sounds like one of the right ones, Casey Thompson, and Frost expanded on the type of player and person Nebraska's getting in Thompson.
Yeah, first of all, his dad's an option quarterback, and I have a soft spot in my heart for Tommy Frazier and Eric Crouch and Turner Gill and Dee Dowis and even Mickey Joseph. It's a dying fraternity, but I got to see his dad the other day, and it was great to see and talk a little football with him. The biggest thing I've noticed so far, we haven't gotten a chance to see him do much with the football or anything, but the biggest thing I notice already is just the leadership coming from those guys and the energy coming from those guys, and that's what a quarterback's supposed to do, supposed to pick up the level of play from everybody around him. And that's tough to do in your first week on campus or your first 2 weeks on campus, but he's doing it. Look forward to working with him, have Coach Whipple work with him. Same with Chubba has been doing a great job with that too, along with the other quarterbacks. But we need leadership from that position, and we need a guy that's going to say, "Hey, get behind me. We're going to go win this thing, and I'm going to lead you there." And you get that feel from those guys.
Coach Frost touched on the narrative that's out there, and a lot of us expect Thompson to win the job, but he's got to go compete for the job. It wasn't just a handout. Here come to Nebraska. Casey Thompson, the job is yours. That isn't the reality. Coach Frost commented on that narrative.
Yeah, that's not my narrative. There's a lot of narratives around that aren't really based in fact. He's going to have every opportunity to start, and he knows that. The other guys are going to get their opportunities too, and we got a long time to work with them and a spring ball and a fall camp to figure it all out.
So the topic of in-state recruiting, always an emphasis, or should be. That's more of a reality now with what Mickey Joseph's doing. And then the region, Greg Smith talked about it, recruiting the region. A lot of talent in that 500-mile radius. Coach Frost on, what Nebraska has been doing in-state.
Yeah, it's been tough, especially with COVID, because we haven't had a chance to get around Nebraska coaches as much as we want to. And some of those relationships need our attention and having a lot of guys in Nebraska. The first day we went out, we sent our whole coaching staff out in Nebraska, except for me because I had COVID. So we want Nebraska kids here, and obviously Mickey has a lot of relationships and people know him. Barrett has a lot of relationships and people know him. So those will be the primary Nebraska recruiters for us. There's a lot of talent, in my opinion, coming up in the state of Nebraska in the region. So that's where our attention is going to be.
More from Scott Frost before we wind it down. It's Signing Day 2.0. Hail Varsity continues, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Like what you hear, high-quality radio and podcast, just part of what we do at Hail Varsity. Hey, it's Chris Schmidt with Hail Varsity Radio, and I wanted to offer listeners of the Hail Varsity Radio Show podcast $10 off the price of an annual subscription. That means that you, for less than $20, can get everything we produce, 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all the premium content we produce at HailVarsity.com. Just go to HailVarsity.com/subscribe and enter in the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's HailVarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
He's in his 30s, but sounds like he was born with a stogie in one hand and a brew in the other.
Now, say my name.
It's Schmitty on Hail Varsity Radio.
I got the body of a taut, preteen Swedish boy.
Back into it at Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Time for a Jock Doc Wednesday with Nebraska Orthopedic Center. We say hi to Dr. Brandon Seifert. Dr. Brandon, you getting geared up for the Super Bowl?
That's going to be a good one. Absolutely. A little bummed that Brady's not going to be there, but still should be pretty awesome. Pretty cool that Burrow's brought his team there. That's amazing.
Just think about Tom. Tom could take a whole city to the Super Bowl and still have some money left over. That could be step one in his retirement.
Oh, that's good stuff.
Well, we and I will both sit back and laugh at Super Bowl ticket prices. What's not a laughing matter, Dr. Brandon, is Cincinnati's weapon at tight end. You know the SEC well, and Auburn product, C.J. Uzama, had a really nice impact early on to kind of settle in the young quarterback, Joe Burrow, finding that tight end safety valve. But tough hit in that first half for Uzama with the knee, and we're working on an MCL sprain.
Yeah, that's what they came out with and put out there about an MCL sprain. So, good news for him from that perspective. Just in terms of not going to need any surgery for that, should be a reasonably short recovery. Now I think the conversation has switched to, how soon can we get this gentleman back? Is he, a potential to play for the Super Bowl? Still some speculation on that. And as we've talked before, let's kind of rewind back to some of our anatomy. So if you think about an MCL, the term for that's medial collateral ligament. That would be the ligament that's on the inside part of your knee, and basically resist force that brings the knee towards the inside of your body. And so varying degrees of that. That's pretty simple in terms of the scale we have. That's grade 1 to grade 3. Grade 1 means you have pain there. You've kind of had a partial strain, but really there's no looseness in the ligament. As you move into a grade 2, now there is some looseness in the ligament, but what we describe, it's got a good end point to it. So you kind of lean on it. It has a nice firm stopping point. That puts you in a grade 2. You're probably looking about maybe up to 50% of the fibers torn there. And as you move into a grade 3, there really is not a good end point. It kind of feels like it's loose all the way across. And that's when you're looking at north of 50% of those fibers torn. So as you look at that perspective, that spectrum of grades, what's important about that is we can use that to kind of guide essentially how soon can we return. When you look at a recovery perspective, so grade 1, typically they're back within 1 to 3 weeks. Grade 2s sometimes take 3 to 6 weeks, then your grade 3s up to 3 months, and that potentially could need surgery with the grade 3. And usually with the grade 3, you're going to start seeing other types of injuries associated with that, whether it's ACL, cartilage versus meniscus.
Dr. Brandon Seiferd's with us at Jock Doc Wednesday, Nebraska Orthopedic Center. We're talking C.J. Uzama, Cincinnati tight end. We don't know officially yet from Cincinnati what grade we're working with, but if it's a grade 3, is it tough to repair those sprains? If you have to go surgical intervention, it's not quite torn, thankfully, but yet it's kind of on the fringe. Would it be better if it was just torn to do a repair, or is it harder to do that grade 3 fix?
Yeah, so good question. So from a treatment perspective, obviously it's pretty simple here. Obviously, the lower grade, the better. You want to,
right?
If you're in kind of a grade 2 zone, and you start to see some of that tearing really kind of get close to where that meniscus on that side attaches. If you remember, that meniscus is that cartilage pad in between the two bones. When you start to get in a situation where it starts to pull into that, and it starts to create some instability in that meniscus, that would be something that would kind of lead you down the surgery pathway for fixing that MCL and then also stabilizing the meniscus at the same time. Unfortunately, that's pretty darn rare for that to happen in a grade 2. And so, honestly, you're much better off to have, one to be treated non-operatively, which in essence, to treat it non-operatively, it means that the meniscus is still stable and you're going to get some scarring in that ligament. And those really do very well. Once you get to that grade 3 level, there are even some grade 3s that, can heal on their own. And so not every grade 3 has to be fixed. That's a little bit, there's some debate about that. But again, the big thing there always is once that MCL starts to involve that meniscus attachment and you start to get some peel up of that meniscus and create instability there, then you need to fix that. And they do much better when you do that. But again, it's a big operation. Obviously long recovery on that. But they do well. There's quite a bit of stiffness to work through with that. More than instability, it's more kind of from a stiffness perspective. It takes a while to regain that mobility and that kind of functional return.
How do you get the flexibility back? Is it through stretches and exercises and, some of the PT? What's the process in coming back? And what's your take here? I know it depends on the grade, but is it too much to ask for CJ to be back for Super Bowl Sunday?
Yeah, so just to answer the first part of that, obviously therapy is huge. You mentioned that. And for us, as a sports doc, therapy is so critical for what we do. So we try to get people plugged into therapy right away. There are some restrictions and a very close kind of protocol you have to follow with the meniscus and even MCL repair. And so you kind of limit some range of motion, might even limit a little bit of some weight bearing early on. But there's some things we can do to kind of counteract that to continue to help the quad muscle get strong after surgery. One of the things that we're utilizing is called a blood flow restriction, where it's pretty simplistic. We use a tourniquet during the rehab process to restrict blood flow, and it kind of helps fatigue that quad pretty quickly, which is something you use to kind of a pseudo-athletic environment to help stimulate the quad growth. But to go and flip the coin back to, can we get him ready, this gentleman ready to play in the Super Bowl? There's a chance. They didn't say specifically what he had for a grade, whether it's a grade 1 or 2. But if he's on that grade 1 spectrum, I think there's a good chance he can come back. The big thing there is, with that kind of earlier return, you always worry about kind of retweaking it. Again, you could take it to a higher grade at that point or potentially for something else. But in the Super Bowl setting, I think there's a good potential he makes it back with a grade 1. If it's a grade 2, it's going to be tough. You might have to flip the coin on that one. And that one's a little risky. You start going back pretty early after a grade 2, you really do kind of put other things at risk.
Dr. Brandon Seiferd's with us, a Jock Doc Wednesday, Nebraska Orthopedic Center. Cincinnati tight end C.J. Uzama out with that knee issue, the sprain of the MCL. And he was on the field after the comeback win, after the overtime in Arrowhead. And he was hopping around on crutches and over to see Joe Burrow's magic. So good spirits. They're supporting his teammates. And the way he landed, it almost kind of looked like a hook slide, right? Remember the old school hook slides where you're trying to slide around someone tagging you at third or home base? Well, that's how he came down, and it was not a hyperextension, or it wasn't even a flamingo knee, but the way he came down, it just Dr. Brandon, he got his left leg caught underneath and kind of tore back or ripped back by the tackler, and that's where I think the injury occurred. It wasn't a cutting issue.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right.
Dr. Brandon, we will gear up and get ready for next Sunday, and we'll see if C.J. Uzama is back in at tight end and can give Cincinnati some more help on the offensive side of the ball. Have a great week, and thank you for a few minutes today.
You bet, Chris. You guys take care. Thanks again.
Dr. Brandon Seifert with us, Nebraska Orthopedic Center, a Jock Doc Wednesday with Hail Varsity. Good stuff from Dr. Brandon. We'll have a couple more thoughts from Scott Frost. Get the lineup set for you tomorrow on Signing Day 2.0. Hail Varsity presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Like what you hear? High-quality radio and podcasts are just part of what we do at Hail Varsity. I'm Brandon Vogel, managing editor. I wanted to offer listeners of the Hail Varsity Radio Show podcast $10 off the price of an annual subscription. That means that you, for less than $20, can get everything we do. 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all of the premium content we produce at hailvarsity.com. Just go to hailvarsity.com/subscribe and enter the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's hailvarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
Miss us?
Come here, brother. Give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at hailvarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, Signing Day 2.0. Podcast will be up, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. Plenty of reaction and thoughts. Nebraska able to get 2 more out of the high school ranks. Good haul by the Big Red. And some thoughts from Greg Smith and Mike Babcock today, Andy Markowski, and we heard from Coach Frost. Tomorrow on the show, Gary Barnett will join us. We'll spend time with Brandon Vogel, Danny Burke. And then how about a Burrow sighting? Jimmy Burrow, longtime defensive coordinator for Coach Solich. And Jimmy Burrow, the proud papa of Joe, we'll ask him what kind of cigars he likes. And that'll be good. Jamie Burrow also going to be with us towards the end of the week.
Speaking of burrows, it's a great segue into Groundhog Day this morning. I guess the whole day is Groundhog Day, but what was it? Puxatony Phil did not see a shadow. Did see a shadow.
Don't know. I know it's going to be 55 and grill Saturday.
What's the Nebraska groundhog? The one that they do here in Nebraska is his own.
Oh,
I know he predicted that it was going to be a short winter.
Dude,
Unadilla Bill.
Yes, Unadilla Bill. I got to go cover Unadilla Bill early in my radio career. But it was sweet going to a bar at 7 a.m. We'll just say that. Let's hear a couple final thoughts from Scott Frost, specifically where we heard the in-state recruiting, which was nice. Moving on, but the attitude, guys that are coming back, returning starters, what type of attitude do they need to come into spring with?
Well, I want them to learn. I want guys that are dedicated doing little things it takes to win. And we did a lot of things right last year and a lot of little things wrong when we needed it the most. When you're doing little things right, it becomes a habit. And, we talk, and a lot of people talk about it, but you don't rise to the occasion, you sink to the level you're training. So I want guys to have those type of practices every day, weightlifting sessions every day. The little things that are going to help us win and the attitude that's going to help us win. But with some of the numbers we have now at those positions, those guys better take advantage of their reps if they want to be on the field. And I think the competition is going to help stimulate effort in practice.
Last thought here from Coach Frost, specifically on Mickey Joseph. We heard Coach talk about Coach Applewhite in the running back room. Mickey, of course, what's that ceiling going to be here for Omar Manning, for Xavier Betts, and for Martin at the wide receiver spot?
Yeah, I want to see consistency. Those guys all had flashes of brilliance last year at certain times and other times when it wasn't what we expected. experience is certainly going to help with that, and hopefully Mickey helps with that. They're going to have a lot of guys on their heels and chasing them with Isaiah here and with some of the other additions that we've made, and Trey and some of the other guys. So, if they're not doing the right thing, somebody else is going to be on the field, and that's the way it's going to be at every position.
Good work. Tomorrow we'll talk with Mr. Burrow. And check the podcast out. Give us a rating, good, bad, ugly. We want to hear from you. Hail Varsity Radio, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. Talk to you tomorrow at 4 with Hail Varsity.
A Hurrdat Media Production.